Welcome back, tech friends. My name's Gareth, this is Tech Check, and wow, I have got an absolute treat for you this week, guys. We're going to be building the latest and greatest, I would say, anything that you would actually need from a 1440p or mega high refresh 1080p gaming PC. So this is going to be a good one, guys. Don't forget to subscribe, smash that like button, and a big shout out to the subscriber for letting me build this PC. Let's do it. So as always, guys, first thing we do is clear our whole desk. Make sure that we've only got in front of us exactly what we're going to need. We'll take our motherboard out of the plastic sheet and we'll put it on top of our motherboard box. We're not scratching any surfaces. We're also protecting the back of the motherboard as well. So we'll place our motherboard in the safest place. We can go ahead and open up this LGA 1700 socket, lifting up our retention arm and then opening up the actual socket itself. Next step is our 14700K. We'll go ahead and undo this box. No return after we've broke this seal. We can open this up and remove our CPU. Try and hold it on the sides. Keep your fingers off of the IHS on the top. And you'll see that we've got a lovely little triangle in this bottom corner down here. All we're going to do is lower this down and match the triangle down here with the triangle that's on our actual motherboard and lower it gently into place. You'll see that our little notches at the top and bottom are all aligned and that's nicely in place. We can fold over our socket and we're going to hook that under and that will pop out. And then all we're going to do is keep even pressure and hook it back under here. If you didn't see the video last week where my 11-year-old was trying to do it with the 7950X 3D, he couldn't quite get enough pressure, so I needed to help him out. One of the good things about this particular board is they've given you an elongated arm here to allow sufficient pressure. So don't be scared. This particular plastic bit will pop out. It sometimes does a little bit of crunching and cracking and things like that, and it's terrifying the first time you do it, but keep hold of this just in case you want to sell your motherboard. It protects those pins. Next step is totally down to yourself. We could go RAM, we could go for the Nvmes. I like to do the actual Nvmes next, and as you'll see here, we've got a 980 Pro and we've got a 990 Pro. Now, the 980 one, made a slight error before, is 500 gigabytes. The 990 is 1 terabyte. We've actually gone for two individual drives, one for our operating system and one for a larger storage drive, which we can use for games and workflows and things like that. So what we're going to do is open up our 980. We'll take the drive out of the actual box and we'll lift the lid up. And that gives us access to our Gen 4 drive. And as it says there, 500 gig 980 Pro. These are fantastic drives, guys. You'll get around 7,000 megabytes per second out of these particular drives. And whilst there is Gen 5 drives out there and Z790 does support Gen 5, I don't think there's any reason to actually need them unless you are going to be transferring a hell of a lot of data and need the absolute fastest of the fastest. Next step is we are going to remove this particular heatsink. We can do that by undoing this screw just up here, and then we can remove that. You'll see we've also got our quick connects and disconnects on here as well. In order to install this, we just need to install it at a 20-degree angle, push slightly forward until it slots into place, and you'll see there it bounces up and down. We can sit it nicely on top of our quick connect and then we can fold that around to lock it in place. What we need to do before we remove and replace this heat shield is remove this little bit of film on the back. We can then place that back into place and lock down via the screw that we untightened to begin with. And there we have it. So that's our operating system drive fully installed, the 500 gig on the top one. We're going to go ahead and remove this thermal guard here by these 3 screws, and we're going to follow the exact same process for our 1 terabyte 990. Now that we've got that undone, we can lift it up, place it to the side, and as you see, guys, we've got an additional 3 slots here. And what we're going to do is we're going to do exactly the same process. We're going to install it on our second drive, 20 degrees, push it forward, and then lock it into place using our quick connect. On the back, Off here, we just need to make sure that we have it orientated the correct way, and we can go ahead and remove any film off of this top one. If I can get it, there we go. And then we can go ahead and replace this thermal guard back into place. And there we have it. In the space of a couple of minutes, our CPU and our two M.2s or NVMe's are fully installed. What we're going to move on to now is our Dominator Titanium. Absolutely beautiful, guys. 6,000 mega transfers per second, 32 gigs in white. Let's crack it open, get it installed. Opening up our box. Woo, look at those. So you're going to get some beautifully diffused RGB on the side, and you're going to get the same on the top. As I said, guys, they are pretty wide, and I would say the width on them are around 40 to 45 millimeters. So I don't think you'll be putting these in any cases that require low profile RAM. To install these, all we need to make sure is that we've got the notch on the actual DIMM of RAM lined up with our RAM slot. We have slots A1, A2, B1, B2. We always populate A2 and B2 first. Make sure that we pull our catches on either side. We line up this with our slot. It obviously doesn't line up like that, so we have to turn it round this way. We can slide it in, first on one side, first on the next. Make sure that we have even pressure on both sides until you get that click, and that means we've got it situated correctly. We'll do exactly the same for our second slot. Even pressure on either side until you get that confirmation click. And they were some nice clicks. But guys, look at that. That looks insane. Absolutely beautiful. So within a couple of minutes, we've got our RAM, CPU, and our two NVMe's nicely installed. The next step, and it starts getting a little bit more exciting, is getting our actual motherboard installed into the case. Before I do that, because I've not built in this 6500X and I'm quite excited to actually have a look at it, I'll just give you a quick walk around some of the features, some of the benefits of the particular case, just in case you guys are interested in buying it like I am. Oh my God, this is heavy. Oh. Now this is one of the cases which has really took my fancy from changing from my Leon Lee 011 Dynamic XL. So dependent on how I actually like this, you're probably going to see me changing from this case or my case to this case as well. With that being said, let's get it out the box. I must say the packaging on this is absolutely amazing. Now that's my type of case, guys. So it's not going to be for everybody straight off the bat, because I can tell you it's very, very large. I'll put the dimensions on the screen for you so you know exactly what you're actually going to be dealing with. But I would say it is a little bit wider than my 011 XL. It's the same in terms of length, but it's definitely a little bit taller, and it's definitely a little bit wider. But I don't mind that, because it means that for someone like me that's constantly taking parts in, taking parts out, it's going to be absolutely fantastic. And one of the biggest things about this particular case is the modularity, but it actually supports the reverse connection motherboards as well. So if you're someone that's got massive OCD and you don't like cables on show, then you could opt for obviously these reverse motherboards where all the connections are on the back, and therefore you don't see any of the actual cables themselves. I'm not a big fan of that. I'm going to say that from the offset. I know that might be quite controversial, but I don't mind some of the cables. I like it, feel like it's been bulked out. I think computers have lost a little bit of design and aesthetics whilst the actual parts are getting better. I think some of the personalization that you can do with the cables, it gives that little bit of personality and stuff like that. So on first impressions, I absolutely love it. Comes with these insane, nicely styled feet on the bottom. It sits at a good couple of centimeters, so you're going to draw some really nice air off of the bottom for these three fans that can go down here. You can obviously put 360 radiators at the bottom, 360 radiators at the top and at the side. So Water cooling is not going to be a problem in this particular case either. At the top, you can see here, we've got 3 USBs and then, well, 4 USBs up here, and then we've got a USB Type-C, a lovely, nice, well, that feels quite nice when you're pressing that. We've got our reset button and our mic and headphone jack and our power button. And one thing I would say is it's got this lovely mesh all the way around the top and all the way around the back here as well. Something that I really like from the H9 Flow, and obviously Corsair's followed suit. So yeah, I don't think airflow is going to be a particular issue in this particular case. So overall, really, really like it, but I'll share my thoughts with you at the end once I've actually built in it, and especially once we've got all these other white parts inside. I'm hoping it's going to be aesthetically pleasing to look at as well. Let's do it. So in order to take this door off, we just need to undo this screw. That removes this screw here. We can then lift it up and our door comes off. If we want to gain access to this top panel up here, we can just remove that mesh, and that gives us full access up here. To take off our back panel, we can undo the 2 thumb screws. Nice to see that they're not over tightened. And then our back panel is removed. If you did want to take this piece of glass out here, you can do it by removing this screw here and this screw down here, and then we can take this whole front piece out. I don't think there's any reason to do that. The case is large enough inside without having to do that at all. Oh, that's a nice change. Look at that. All nice white cables. So we've got our HD audio, USB 2, USB 3, USB Type-C, and we've also got another USB 3 because we've got 4 USB slots on the top of this particular case. In the hard drive bay, we've also got our Corsair goodie bag, which I've just removed. And you can see in here, they do supply us with all the case screws, a front panel connector or quick connect, which is nice, loads of zip ties, and then all the other screws that we're going to require. So we're going to put our motherboard inside our particular case, guys. When we're doing this, remember 2 things. If your motherboard does not have an integrated IO shield, that is the point to put that in now. You don't want to go ahead, install our motherboard, and then have to take it out. So drop our motherboard into the case nice and gently. Don't rub it all over these standoffs that are inside this particular case. Just make sure that everything lines up really nicely. And then our center pin should keep it firmly in place. Once it does, utilize the bag of screws that Corsair's nicely provided us. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and put in all 9 of our motherboard screws, remembering not to over tighten these, but ensuring they've got a decent connection with those grounding pins. There we have it. So 3, 6, and 9 screws nicely installed. Now let's move on to installing our H150 LCD so we can get our cooler nicely in place, our radiator at the top set as an exhaust, and then we can move on to the actual case fans themselves. So for anybody that has not seen this H150i LCD yet, guys, absolutely phenomenal differences in terms of from the QL 120s. The benefits are huge amount of less clutter from a cable perspective, so much easier to connect and much easier if you want to take a fan out and replace it, etc, etc. So not to mention better performance from the QX 120 fans. So in front of us, guys, is everything that came out of our H150i LCD, the new QX ones, okay? So as you can see here, we've got the beautiful diffused LCD screen with the larger housing, and it has an offset specifically designed for the new Intel and AMD CPUs. So it sits centrally in the center of your motherboard on top of that particular CPU, offering a greater degree of cooling, and not only that, looks aesthetically better as well. We've got the 3 QX 120 fans, which are pre-installed onto our 360mm radiator with the white all-in-one tubes. These tubes are beautifully bendy, easy manipulated as well. One of the things that I have done, and I will be doing, is I've left this cover on at the minute, and it does come with the Intel mounting bracket already pre-installed. We will remove this particular Corsair thermal paste off of the back of here so that I ensure that it's fresh, a new one that's going on to the actual CPU. We've got our long screws and our short screws. We've got our Intel 1700 standoffs. We've got our Intel back bracket, which is here. The actual IQ box is powered via this PCIe cable, which is here. We can plug that into that side, and that's going to provide power to our IQ box. We then have another cable, which is here. It's a USB connection. It goes onto a USB 2 header on our motherboard. And then we've got our old school USB connector, which is here. And that plugs into this connection just here. The last one that we've got is one that needs to be connected so that you don't have the error on screen saying no CPU, cooler, or fan detected. So it's just a 2-pin which goes into this connector at the bottom, just down here. Pushes all the way in, and that is going to go onto our CPU fan header on our motherboard. The last one is a cable which goes directly from a USB-C. Probably won't be able to see it like that, but it goes into our radiator just on here, and that's so that we can control the LCD functionality on this cooler itself. But I will walk you through it as and when we're doing it, but I just wanted to give you a quick overview of those particular connections there. One of the good things about these back plates, guys, is we've got a little bit of 3M tape. We can remove that to gain access to the back where we're going to actually put our Intel mounting bracket. I've just removed our hard drive bay. I've removed the little bit of 3M tape off of here, and all we're going to do is we're going to line up this bracket with the 4 holes that's on the back of our motherboard. And yes, these all move as well, guys. So if it don't quite fit, you can adjust them to ensure they do fit. Once it's in, you can give it a firm push, and that 3M tape should hold our bracket in place for us. Then we're going to take each one of the 4 standoffs, and we're going to screw it into each corner of our motherboard. Once you've got a couple in either side, the other 2 should be much easier. And again, we need to do this one here and then this one here. So that will just drop into there very, very nicely. And then we are going to opt for our connection like so. What I am going to do to make it much easier is I'm going to get one of the smaller screws and a washer. I'm going to line up my radiator with the back of my case. And I want to ensure that we've got it all lined up. And I'm going to start pushing in a couple of these screws just to hold the radiator in place. But I don't want to over tighten these screws for the time being. And then you've got plenty of flexibility of where you want to locate your radiator, whether it's all the way this side and give you plenty of room this side, or did you want to have it right in the middle? Totally up to yourself. What we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and remove our cover off of bottom of our cooler. We're going to go ahead and remove this particular thermal paste, and we're going to replace it with some brand spanking new one. Today we're changing it up, and we are going with a small pot of thermal grizzly. We put a nice little dot there, and a nice little dot there, and a nice little dot there, and a nice little dot there, just to make everybody angry in the comments. Next step, very, very straightforward. All we're going to do is we're going to line up each one of these brackets with our standoff, and once we've actually made a connection, guys, we want to try and keep it in the same position. So there we go. We've got that on now. Keep one finger there, and we take one of the 4 thumb screws, the large ones, and we can go ahead and put one in each corner and just get it on so it's not going to come off. You don't need to tighten it down at this point though. Now all 4 screws are on. What I'd like to do is start in one corner and do a few turns, 1, 2, 3, and then go to the opposite corner, 1, 2, 3. And likewise, we'll start in this corner and then this corner, and we're going to continue to do that until the cooler centralizes itself and we actually reach thumb tight. And then we have it, nice cooler, fully installed, nice and centralized. And like I said, guys, it gives you a little bit more room on this side. These tubes are really nice and flexible. Once we've got our radiator secure, then we can decide on, do we want to put our tubes around the bottom? Do we mind having them over the top? It's totally up to yourself. But we'll go ahead now and put in the additional 10 screws holding our radiator in place. Now that we've got our radiator exactly where we want it, we can go ahead and tighten down our screws. Not too much that we're going to actually enter the fin stack though, so just be mindful, these do not need to be mega tight. As I said, if you don't have any SSDs or hard drive, you can leave this out, it's not a problem. These two little catchers at the bottom, and they just go into these two at the bottom here, then it folds up and it is locked in place with these two tiny screws. And as you can see guys, it's starting to take form. Don't worry about these particular cables at this moment in time. What we're going to do now is we're actually going to move on to the case fan installation as well. So we're going to have 3 at the bottom, 3 at the side, and 1 at the rear. Let's do it. So the first thing we're going to do guys is we're going to install 3 of these QX120 fans set as an intake. So we want to be looking at the back of the actual case fan. These are going to go at the bottom down here. Very, very simple and straightforward. All we're going to do is use 12 of these screws, screwing from outside the case into the actual fan itself, holding them into the case. We can remove our dust filter at the bottom. It will give us access to that particular compartment. One thing that I would suggest is that you make sure that you've got your connections where you actually want them. So if I was to put these fans in here, it means that we would have the actual connection here. Now what I'd like to do is try and keep that connection at that back end so I can keep these cables as nicely cable managed as possible. So I'm going to line that one up. I'm just going to put a screw in this bottom corner down here. And what we're going to do is we're not going to put them in at a point where we're tightening them up. I just want to secure the fans into the actual case. And then we're going to actually be able to move them about so we can place them exactly where we want them. So I want it something like that. So we want to take one of the 60mm cables and we want to connect that onto the rear of this particular fan, and we can leave that dangling out. Now we've got that in place and we've got our cable there guys, what we want to do is then move on to our next 3 case fans. What we're going to want to do here is ensure that we've got the connector coming off of the left hand side. We've got the fans blowing air into the case. We can go ahead and we can make this connection just here. So we can go ahead and connect that cable onto there like so. And then we can drop those fans onto that back plate which is there, and then we can stand our case up. To save yourself a lot of hassle guys, what I would also advise is that you go ahead and connect a very long cable that comes with your pack. Make sure that that is going through your grommets on the side. Pull that nicely through, and now you won't struggle to actually get that connected once you've got these 3 particular fans all installed. We'll go ahead and we'll put our screws in, holding our fans in place. Remembering not to tighten them down too much, so you've still got that little bit of flexibility if you want to move them up or down. So there we have it guys. We've now got our 12 other screws installed. We've got our 3 QX120 fans set as an intake into the actual case. Looking rather tasty. What we're going to do now guys is move our attention to our rear QX120, and you get your singular fan, and as part of this singular fan I noticed that Corsair has nicely added another 60mm cable as well. It's also a good idea guys to connect your 60mm cable, one to the single fan, and then we also want to connect it to our 3 fans at the top here, so we can go ahead and just bend that cable around. And you can do this once you've actually got the fan in, but it might be easier to do it now for some people as well. And all we need to do is make sure that we put those 4 screws in there. So let's just have a look at these connections then guys. So we've got a 60mm cable from our single 120 to our 3 120 fans connected at the back down here. We've got a single 60mm cable which is connecting these 3 fans to these 3 fans. And then we've got one of the large 120 or 150mm cables which is connected at the back here, that's going to run into our IQ box. So I went through earlier on these connections here, but effectively we're going to power the IQ box via this 6 pin. We're going to connect it to our IQ software via the USB 2 connection, and then this is our 3-pin which goes onto our CPU header on our motherboard. We can have 7 devices connected one side and 7 devices connected the other. I would highly suggest, if you are following this particular same setup, that you only have one 20mm fan and the 3 120s on your radiator going into one channel, and then you have the other 6 fans going into the other channel. Last couple of mentions then in terms of connections, guys. One thing that we do need to do is we do need to connect, whilst we've got this fan connected to these 3 fans, we do need to connect these 3 fans to our actual radiator itself. So you can put your connection into there, and then you have to have a cable which runs round, and you then have a cable which goes directly into that port there, or you could have it in the next port as well. I know it's a little bit hard for you guys to see, but there's effectively 2 ports I've put from the fan into one of the ports. What we also need to do to ensure that our LCD screen is customizable and changeable is we also need to run the USB-C connection, which is just here, and that needs to run to a USB 2 header on our motherboard as well. For our 3 fans and our rear exhaust fan is, and they do give you a straight one here and a right angled one as well, but we need to connect it from here, and again that will run into one of these ports on the back. So we take our USB-C and we can plug that into our radiator, which is just there, and then that's going to the back of our case. We can also take another one of our long cables as well. That again needs to connect into here, and then that needs to go into the back of the case as well. So at the back, we've got our IQ hub. We can remove the peels. Now this is got a nice little place here, look, where it can go. It is magnetic, so it can go anywhere, guys. Once the cables have been tamed, it should be able to be absolutely fine. Nothing that a bit of 3M tape can't solve either. We've got our 2 long cables. One is for our 3 side fans and our 3 bottom fans, and we're going to plug that into one channel, which is this one. And then we've got our other long cable, and that is for our rear fan and our 3 fans going off of our all-in-one, and that goes just into there like that. Very straightforward. Lots less cables. Let's move on to getting the power supply installed, and then we've only got our graphics card left. So onto the power supply, guys, and this is the RM1000X 80X3 PCIe Gen 5, 80 plus gold rated and fully modular. Difference being all the connections are on the side, smaller connections and a lot more visible and easy to access, which is a massive bonus. If you've not picked one of these up, might be a good chance to pick one up. They're currently on offer at this moment in time as well. This one's the white one, and it comes with a series of lovely cables as well, all in white. So should be quite in keeping with the rest of the build, not needing those extension cables, saving you a little bit of money as well. Let's get on to connecting these all up and installing it. So our first cable up is our 24-pin connector. We've got 2 cables, and we will put our first one into this connection, which is just here. Make sure that you've got good firm connections, guys. And then our second connection is this one just behind it. Again, just making sure that they are nicely fully pressed in. There's nothing worse than having a dodgy connection. Our next cable is one of our CPU cables. So we're going to put our first one into this one here. And then we have another one of these cables, which is this one here. And we're going to put that one just below it. I've also got a PCIe cable, and we're going to require the 6-pin to power our IQ hub. So we want to make sure that that one goes into this one here. And last but not least is our high voltage power cable. So obviously a lot of bad press in relation to obviously these cables, guys. It is a 600 watt cable, so we do want to make sure that we have these connections fully all the way in and correct, and we don't want any undue bends or tight turns or anything like that when we're actually connecting it to the actual graphics card. All that we need to do now is ensure that our fan is on the outside when we're putting it into the actual case. We don't want to put it up against the back of the motherboard tray. That's really bad. We need to make sure we've got a mesh panel. So we're going to install 4 screws from outside the case, holding the power supply in with the fan on the outside so it can actually breathe. What we're going to do now is we're going to push all of the cables through to the front of the case. I'm going to make all of the connections. I'll do it as quick as I can, and then we're back to the graphics card. So I've pushed through all of the cables that are going to be required to connect to our motherboard, guys, and we'll always start with the largest one. And as I discussed previously, these white cables aren't bad at all from Corsair. We just need to make sure that the clip is on the right side. We can then bend that around and we can try and train the cables, but first of all, make the connection. We can push that all the way in, and that's that lovely connection there. And then we can kind of tighten up these cables, pushing them back through to the back once we've made all the other connections. Next up is our USB 3, and we can see we've got a notch here. We just need to line that up with the notch there. We can bend that one nicely around. Once we've got it lined up, we can push it firmly into place, like so. Our next one is our USB-C. Now this one's a little bit funny, guys. It goes into this connector here. I'd always advise just give it a bit of a test connection first to make sure that you've got it the right way before you push and force it all the way in. We have our front panel connectors, and Corsair has very nicely put all of the connections all together for us. So we just need to make sure that this connects down here. Last of all, we've got our HD audio connector, and as you can see, we've got a blank. Just make sure that you've got the audio facing downwards on this case, and then that will push right into place at the bottom down here. We do have another USB 2 connection and another USB 2 connection to make, but we'll make them slightly after. What I would also advise is I've actually had to remove the hard drive bay cage in order to get our EPS power cables through. We're going to make these 2 connections, our 2 8-pin connections at the top up here. So again, just make sure that you've got them lined up and you hear that click, and we can pull the excess through to the back of the case once we're done. There we go. I think we're now at a point where we can go ahead and get our graphics card installed. Then I'll do the last couple of connections with regards to the RGB at the back, once I've done a little bit of cable management, and then we'll be ready to give it a test boot. So I'll be back very shortly. Let's pull all these cables through and let's get the graphics card in. So next up is our Gaming X Slim in white from MSI. This is the RTX4070Ti. And as you can see, guys, this is going to go absolutely beautifully. White, silver, all white, but it's going to fit into this case very, very nice aesthetically. Just give it a quick line up. We're going to require our 2 slots, which are there, number 2 and number 3. So we can remove these with a nice magnetic screwdriver. We can line up our graphics card. And once you've got it nicely in place, we want to apply firm pressure until you hear a click. And that's exactly what it should sound like. We can go ahead and replace the 2 screws, and that's our graphics card installed. We'll go ahead right at the end and we will connect our 12+4 pin. So we've reached that point, guys, where we've either done everything perfectly or something's going to come back to bite us in the backside and it's back to troubleshooting. Let's hope it's not. Let's press the power switch and power button, please. Now that's a good start. We've got the RAM, the graphics card, the all-in-one, Q lights. Come on, iCue, please. I'm hoping this is going to light up like a... Way, look at that. I was going to say a Christmas tree. And we've got every fan spinning. and we've got everything turning on. Now that's expected because it's obviously first boot, so it's going to be doing some memory timings at the minute, but that looked phenomenal, guys. Absolutely phenomenal. And look at these Corsair titanium DDR5 sticks of RAM. Absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Corsair, if you want me to utilize any more of your parts, I keep doing it free of charge. All the latest fans, cases, coolers, RAM, hit me up. Instagram, email, love to do some extra builds using your parts. I'm a big fan. So that aside, what do you think, guys? 14700K, RTX4070 Ti, going to be insane at 1080p and 1440p. From an aesthetics point of view, white on silver looks absolutely insane. Couple of words about this case. Never built in this case before. Did I enjoy it? Absolutely. Was it easy to build in? Yes. Do I like building in it? Yes. I think things to take into consideration, guys. Just be mindful that it is quite a large dual chamber case. It's not so bad for me because I've got the XL 011 dynamic, and there's some things on this case that I really like. I love the mesh filter on the full black side panel and this top side panel here. I love the fact that it's got like no stand or no corner, and it's just like an infinity corner. Love that. I love all the grommets all the way around. I love the fact that you can put 140 fans or 120mm fans all the way around, except for that side 3. But everywhere else, absolutely wicked. 360mm radiators, top, middle, bottom, no problem at all. The fact that they've thought about most things is absolutely fantastic. And look, I've got a Corsair 1000X shift here, and this particular 16 pin is not quite long enough to go where it needs to go. Is it the end of the world? No. Would I like it to be perfect? Yes. We have to be careful with regards to these connections here. We can't put any undue pressure on the bends and things like that. But overall, 6500, absolutely insanely beautiful case. From an airflow perspective, I've not had time to test it at the minute, but I don't envisage any problems whatsoever. I know a lot of you guys out there are looking to pick up this particular case. If you've got any questions, queries, let me know in the comments section below. I'll leave a full list of all the parts, guys, in the description as well for you guys if you're looking to pick up any of these parts. They are based in the UK, or we are based in the UK, so they are primarily going to be from Amazon, etc. So just be aware of that. But yeah, overall, let me know what you think. 1440p, Ultimate Gaming PC? I think so, especially on the aesthetic side. Let me know. I'm hoping you've enjoyed it, guys. If you have, smash that subscriber button. Don't forget to leave a big fat like. Any comments, leave them below. I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy. You ready?
Yeah.
Go.
Whoa. Whoa. Oh my God. This is what I want. This is what I want. I watch only on YouTube and on Twitter, you know, on Facebook.
Yeah.
Sorry. How people got dark, white.
Yeah.
No. One can.
Well,
now I've got.
You've got one now.
Oh my God.
Good man.
36 old guy.
It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
You happy?
I'm very happy.
Yeah?